Oh, I think it's actually about to go to YouTube.
Does that mean we need to be on our best behavior now?
Yes, best behavior, please. Be well behaved.
Very good luck, everyone. Hope it goes well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oliver.
Okay. We're streaming. I'm going to let everybody in and we can crack on. Just see what the time is. Hi to everyone who's joining. Oh, yay. It's good to see so many of you joining. Hey, someone from New York. Good to see you. I'm going to try not to be overexcited. I'm going to act chill. It's good to see so many people joining. So we're going to kick off in 1 minute. We're about good to go. Give a few more people a chance. Hi, people on YouTube as well. Your audio is all off, so you don't have to worry. If you're watching right now, you can't speak, so don't worry. We can't hear you. You're all good. Hi, Olivia. Okay, let's crack on. Hi, everyone. It's absolutely fantastic to see so many people joining this evening for a fantastic event that I'm so excited about, which is Black Women in Gaming, brought to you by Coding Black Females along with Bossa Studios. We've been working for a while to put this event together, and we've got really exciting people on the panel for you today that you're going to get to hear from. Loads of different stories, loads of different experiences about Black women being in the gaming industry. So super excited. To let you know a bit about Coding Black Females, we are a community which started back in 2017, and we're a community for Black women in technology. We're actually the largest community of Black women in the UK, and we intend to keep on growing, and we intend to also be the largest community in the entire world. So join us, be part of us, get involved in Coding Black Females. It's an amazing community. We run loads of events. We have events twice a month. And, there's a variety of things we do. We have workshops, we have talks like this evening. We do loads of awesome stuff. So definitely get involved. And if you don't fancy joining an event, but you want to hear more stuff, we've got a podcast, we've got a blog. There's a job board if you're looking for work. We do mentorship. So definitely get involved with Coding Black Females, sign up and get involved in what we do, because we do loads of really fun stuff. And if you're also interested in ever doing any speaking opportunities, we've got loads of opportunities for you to speak at conferences, at our events, at external events as well. So get involved in Coding Black Females. Tonight we have this awesome event, which hopefully you've seen floating around on social media or in the event when you signed up as well. And we're going to have 5 women doing their talks, along with Chantel, who's going to be facilitating the event this evening too. And just to let you all know about a program that we've got that's coming up at the moment that we've just launched. If you're interested in a BCS membership, we've just partnered with BCS, the British Computer Society, and you can sign up to get membership with them. And that'll be an annual membership that will be available to you. So definitely sign up. There's a sign up link there, which is bit.ly, and you want CBF X BCS. And you'll be able to sign up there for BCS membership if you're interested. So definitely take a look. We've also got some really exciting partnerships. So keep an eye on what we're doing on social media. Keep an eye on what you might see, because there'll be more programs coming along. There'll be more things that you can have a look at. So definitely keep involved. Keep on watching Coding Black Females. And if you want to join, have a look at our website, sign up to our events, and follow us on social media as well. But I am going to hand over to Chantel, who is going to handle this fantastic event for us. Thank you so much, Chantel. And thank you, Bossa, as well, for making this event happen tonight.
Okay, so hi and welcome everybody. It's great to have you all here, loving the numbers. I want to again thank Charlene and Bossa for this opportunity. As mentioned, my name is Chantel. I am currently the project coordinator at PlayStation underneath the Worldwide Studios Games User Research team. So basically my team handles games in development and making them, well, basically the best games possible. So my love for video games started from a very, very young age, but my access to the industry wasn't necessarily what I expected or how I even anticipated entering. I don't think it's very common knowledge on how to get into the video games industry. And growing up, my parents always found that video games were a distraction. It wasn't something that you could genuinely consider as a career opportunity or path. So I'm going to say that this is probably going to change, because in the first few months of the pandemic, video games industry actually reported a 60% increase in profits in sales. So I think a lot more people are aware that this is one of the industries that will keep on thriving and going. And when you really look around, you've got things like e-gaming taking off, as well as many YouTubers and Twitch streamers doing really, really great things. One thing that we are well aware of in the video games industry is the lack of diversity. And many companies, particularly now, are taking a much larger look at how they're recruiting, the diversity of their actual organizations, what kind of training that they are actually, utilizing within their companies, and, really making their companies the best places to work for people of color in particular. I know that my company, for example, has recently done a number of workshops that have been really beneficial, and it's looking at all ranges of diversity. Apologies right now because I don't have any headsets and my rabbit has just started chewing on something. But what I really wanted to touch on was that there are going to be many, many opportunities to join the video games industry. What you'll find now is that they're also looking at how they're recruiting, where they're putting out jobs. If you are not on LinkedIn, I do recommend it because there are many vacancies there. What I also wanted to say to you was, if there is a lack of diversity in organizations, what you'll find are examples of things like the Ubisoft semi-scandal that recently happened, which was with their recently released game, which featured a terrorist organization called Umbra, and where I don't know how many of you saw that, but they'd actually utilized the Black Lives Matter fist as part of the terrorist organization's logo. And that resulted in a number of media outlets kind of saying, this isn't right. And a lot of people on social media also saying that this isn't the way to do things. And this is what happens when you do not have a diverse organization or a diverse workforce. So just to let you guys know that coming up this evening, we have Aneni, who's going to be talking about the future of gaming, Joy, who'll be talking about Through My Lens, Liz, who'll be talking about programming murder by numbers, Alexis on finding your space, and Danielle on bringing culture to The Sims. Something else to mention is what a lot of people don't realize about video games is that they're great with hand-eye coordination. They are great at providing puzzle solving skills. And these are things that many, many people don't realize. I'm now going to hand off to Aneni. She will start. And just before I do go, guys, there will be a Q&A at the end. So please note down any questions you have. And if it's for a particular speaker, we'll be looking forward to answering those at the end. Aneni, if you're ready.
Hi, everyone. Hi, my name is Aneni. I am a robotics and artificial engineer based in the UK. And yeah, we're going to talk about the future of gaming. Give me some, a few seconds while I just get my presentation up. Okay. Hopefully you can all see that. So the future of gaming. Picture this, it's the year 2030. You just had lunch by the Mont Blanc in the French Alps, attended a business meeting in Ghana, chose the furniture for your flat in London, or while sunbathing on a beach in Barbados. So just picture that, get that image in your head, and then think about it. It sounds so crazy, doesn't it? It just sounds so impossible. It doesn't sound like something that could actually happen, I know. But thanks to the amazing developments in tech, what was once a thing of like fiction and of the past and couldn't possibly be real is actually a part of our new reality. My name is Aneni Aban. I'm a robotics engineer and AI engineer, as I said, based in the UK. And today we'll be talking about some of the developments in tech. Some of the developments that we're going to be talking about are in the gaming space, as well as the potential evolutions within human, computer, and environment interaction. So a bit about me. I decided to get into robotics and AI because I'm obsessed with futuristic technology. All of it is a bit of me, the Matrix, iRobot. That's exactly why I got into robotics. Anything that seems unattainable, but with the, application of existing scientific and electronic principles can in fact be created. That's where I like to be. So again, naturally, I love films like iRobot, The Matrix, Ready Player One by Steven Spielberg. Why do I love them? Because they challenge you to think about your life beyond your current reality. So 50 years ago, if you told people that over 2.7 billion people would have small rectangular phones, like devices capable of seeing and speaking to people 5,000 miles away, it would have sounded ridiculous. Nobody would have believed you because at that point in time, it was not a part of their reality. But literally, there's 5.11 billion unique mobile users worldwide as of 2019. To me, that's just amazing. And 2.71 billion of those people have smartphones. So guys, if you think about it, that's nearly coming up to 50% of the world's population has a smartphone. So things like this is why I love tech, because it's so like disruptive, but disruptive in a wonderful way that makes whatever sector it's being used in better. So yeah, gaming is not a stranger to disruptive tech. And it's one of the things that, again, is so close to my heart. Outside of my 9-to-5 tech roles, I like to call myself a professional gamer. Not because I have any certificates or anything, because I don't. I'm not that cool. I don't have a Twitch yet, coming soon. But because I've been gaming for like over 20 years. So that's really a career if you think about the time period. So I've been gaming for a long time. For me, what I loved about being a gamer is seeing the way that tech goes into everything, from the consoles to the gaming software itself. So it's been an exciting ride for all of us who play games casually, whether you're hardcore, whether you've been in this for a while, and to see how they've really transformed over the years has just been amazing. I used to play Nintendo 64. My best game was Legend of Zelda, the Ocarina of Time. The music, the gameplay, everything about this game is a bit of me. And then I graduated into the Game Boys. So basically, I'm a Nintendo kid. Nintendo was my go-to game when I was a lot younger. I used to love Game Boy, like SP, Advance, everything you can think of, I basically had it. These are a few of my favorite games, I just had to share that to you guys. Like, I really do love these games. So we got Grand Theft Auto, Metroid, Silent Hill, Xbox, my best game is Halo. So yeah, one of the biggest developments within the gaming industry has been the introduction of immersive technology. When you look at like how much games have actually accrued in the last year, it's crazy. 120 billion in revenue in 2019. 64.4 billion goes to mobile games, 29.6 billion PC games, 15.4 billion to consoles, 6.5 billion to game-related bids or content, and 6.3 billion to XR games. So XR games, what's XR games? XR is just another fancy word for immersive technology, and immersive technology is another fancy term. You know, tech, we love our fancy terms. It basically just means extended reality. Extended reality. So you've definitely heard about stuff like VR, when you wear a virtual headset and you're transported into a world in a game. So yeah, extended reality basically comprises of virtual reality, augmented reality, AR, and mixed reality. So let's talk a bit more about virtual reality. So on the left, we have Facebook Oculus. So there's Mark Zuckerberg and his Element doing his thing. We've also got Google Cardboard and Samsung VR. So these are just some of the like VRs that are currently out there. I'm sure maybe at least once or twice you've come across VR, you've played with it. With VR, you wear the headset and you can kind of see the virtual world, but you're not actually immersed in it fully. You're still being able to like, if you take it off, you're back in your living room or wherever you're playing. You're not fully immersed. So that's where we are with VR. Again, if you've seen Ready Player One, I love this film so much. This gives us an example of VR and how people were transported into the game and basically could escape their reality because the whole world was in chaos at the time. So yeah, this is another example of VR. Augmented reality. Augmented reality basically is what take computer generated images or augmentations as we call it, and you place it on top of the real world. So if you've played Pokemon Go, this is a perfect example of AR. You're still within your real world. You're not wearing a headset or anything fancy, but through the use of a device like a phone, you can project those computer generated images onto your environment. So IKEA has a really cool app where you can actually place things in your living room and you can virtually see how it would look in certain areas of your house. So yeah, that's essentially how AR works. One of the best ways that we use AR is basically with pilots, and they can actually have data on their screens while they're flying the plane and see different things, whether it's, you know, roll, pitch, yaw, anything to do with the plane. So those are more common applications of AR right now. Next, we have mixed reality. So this is still quite new. Some people call it AR 2.0. It's somewhere between AR and VR. It's what a lot of tech companies and gaming companies are aspiring to get to when it comes to immersive tech. Basically, this is where the physical and digital objects coexist and interact in real time. So there's no differentiation, like everything is happening as it is. You can imagine for this, you need a crazy amount of processing power. So right now it's still in development, but an example of mixed reality would be Magic Leap 1 or even holographic devices, which become immersive. So an example here is Windows MR. So as you can see, he's got his headset, but he can actually move around objects in real time. So it's a bit like, yeah, if you had a holographic keyboard, for example, and you could actually type on it, and when you're typing, it's actually going onto the computer. So anything that's happening in real time, but is being virtually cast into the real world is MR. So as great as these developments are, they are not really fully immersive. Like you're in the game, but you take off the headset, you're in your living room. You move around with Pokemon Go, there's still certain areas that you can't go to, certain places you can't access. Maybe there's a big mountain in the way. You're not fully immersed in it. You still realize that you're playing a game. What if we could be fully immersed into a game with no differentiation between the real and the virtual world? So yeah, guys, imagine you could be playing a game and you could literally smell the flowers in the game. You could smell the flowers in the field. You're playing Cooking Mama and you can taste the food. Somebody said to me, you know, what if you burnt the food? You'd just be tasting like the burnt crust. But, you know, what if we could, that's part of the experience. Maybe you taste it and know, okay, next time I need to do better in the game because that tasted nasty. So, you know, what if we could actually fully immerse ourselves into these games and not really know if we're in the game or not? So to be fully immersed means to use all the 5 senses. So our sense of smell, our sense of sound, our sense of touch, taste, and sight. So researchers at Northwestern University and Hong Kong Polytechnic University have developed a new apparatus that makes a user feel like they're really, really part of an immersive experience. Go to the next. So what you're looking at might look like, what's this? This is crazy. Guys, this is actually skin. So what they've done is they've made artificial skin that you can actually place on your hands, on any part of your body that you want to use in the game, so that while you're gaming, that is actually relaying information back to the game. If you move your hand upwards, whatever happens in the game is moving upwards. So you're actually, not only are you being immersed fully into the game, but you are becoming part of the game. You're digitalizing yourself so that you are actually a full-on character. So this is, forget role-playing games. You are the character within the game. And I could go into the tech. I know I have like 10, 15 minutes. I could go into the tech a bit more, but basically it uses near-field communication, which is the same communication that's used in bank cards. And this allows us to basically contact with the console, whatever console you're using, within a certain distance, but it's a battery-free operation. So literally it's just the skin and you can just do whatever you want it to do with that. So yeah, there's really cool things happening at the moment when it comes to tech in the gaming sphere. So moving on to conclusions, just rounding up. First of all, full dive virtual reality needs a fast and stable communication between the human brain and the machine. This is still unattainable. In order to achieve this, we need literally to have brain signals hooked up to games. This can't happen because one, there's a lot of ethics around it. If you think about the Matrix, before they could actually be in the world, they had to be plugged in to the back of their head. So you literally have to be fed directly from your nervous system into the game. And you can imagine this comes with a lot of ethical issues. Imagine you're playing a game and you're fully immersed in it and somebody hacks into the game and completely scrambles around with your brain. I'm sure, again, with the Matrix, you've seen what happened when things start getting a bit messy with the AI. So yeah, that's the kind of issues we have, the ethical issues when it comes to full-on VR. You don't really want to be fully transported into a game and then people can hack into it, mess with you. And even the fact that you're hooking up games to biological body parts like your spine or your brain, yeah, there's a lot of, there's a fine line that you're kind of drawing there, kind of playing God. But even with the research that's being done, just to calm everybody down and to like, scientists are not there. They're not going to be there for like the next at least 20 years. So we still have some time. They're making a lot of progress, but I think right now when it comes to the most advanced development that we have is definitely the skin. So don't worry, robots are not going to take us, take over the world anytime soon. We're not going to be plugged into the Matrix anytime soon. Well, unless a government approves of it and then everyone's hooked up, and then that's a whole different story. I'm sure the UK might be one of the first people to do it, but hey. Anyway, the main issue is insufficient power. Again, you can imagine for you to be able to do something like this, you need a lot of processing power. Computers must detect, process, and output vast amount of data in real time. This can only be achieved right now on quantum computers. Right now, we're not at that state where we can actually do that efficiently. So again, we still have some time. And yeah, to sum it up, we have a clear concept of full dive virtual reality. Sooner or later, mankind will make the kind of physical and computer-generated worlds that truly offer a unique, irreplaceable kind of virtual experience. But until then, we still have some years, we still have some time to go. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys. I hope you've enjoyed this. There'll be a Q&A at the end if you want to ask me any questions about AR, VR, or MR. Knock yourselves out.
So thank you for that, Eneni. We do have already a few questions. As she said, do not forget to make note of those questions and we will be answering those at the end. Next up, we have Joy, who will be talking about Through My Lens. Joy, you ready?
Yes, I am. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Joy Ajayi, and I'll be talking about Through My Lens. Well, my name is Joy Ajayi. I'm from Lagos, Nigeria, and I am a gameplay programmer. I'm also a student of computer engineering at Covenant University. So when I'm talking about through my lens, it's kind of coming from the computing world into gaming. I have always been interested in gaming since I was little, playing games on the desktop at home, Minesweeper, also playing games on Cartoon Network sites, and just getting involved with gaming. Initially, I mean, with normal way things go in African lifestyle, I should have done dentistry or become a doctor, but I was never interested in any of that. So I decided that I wanted to do software, which was programming. But I didn't know that I could do gaming as a career until my senior year at high school. And that's when I discovered that there was a summer camp I could go to and learn how to make games. And that's how I learned how to make my first game using Constructed then. And it was very interesting experience that I just had that back of my mind that when I'm done studying in university, I would probably go on and go into gaming because there's no gaming courses in Nigeria that I could study. So the next best thing was either computer science or computer engineering. So I went for computer engineering. And studying computer engineering and trying to be involved in gaming is very difficult because computer engineering is software and hardware, and it's very bulky and tough. So I just tried to learn other programming languages, and until last year, before I could probably say I was a professional in gaming, because my internship here was coming along, and I decided that it was time for me to actually take this gaming as a career seriously. So I went for another summer camp where I learned Unreal Engine 4. And I made my very first proper game that I was extremely proud of because I was the one that did everything for myself. From the first, it was a level-based game. So I did the first level in third-person shooter and the second level in first-person shooter. It was really weird, but it was so much fun doing that. And it made me realize that I could actually do this. I didn't need to go to a school to learn how to make games. I could just take tutorials off the net and piece information together and actually try my hands on making games. But because my internship year was coming, I decided that since I had this little experience, I should try applying to all these big industries in the UK. So I applied to Sega, Improbable, and King, but I didn't get in, and I kind of see that as a blessing now because it made me look inwards, which is the gaming industry in Nigeria. And so far, I have learned so much because currently I'm interning at an animation and gaming studio, Magic Carpet Studios in Lagos. And I've learned so much. I'm currently learning Unity, and I'm using Unity to make a game for the company. And I've realized that the gaming industry at home is also as developed as that outside the continent. And I have met so many amazing people and just seeing things through my lens, like my topic says, is the industry in Africa, in Nigeria especially, I started since 2012. So we have a lot of companies from Kuluya, Malio, Chop Up, and they have been making games for years. But there's been a bit of struggle because, I mean, developing nations and with the problems we've had in Africa, across even countries right now, in terms of our leadership and our government. But in each of these, we have people that are actually fighting and creating a space for people in gaming. So when it comes to also identifying spaces for myself, it has been interesting. And that was throughout all this process that I discovered women in games. And it was a very wonderful opportunity for me to become an ambassador for women in games because I realized that there weren't enough females in Nigeria interested in gaming. This was more, I kept meeting boys and it was like, what's going on? Yeah, why are the girls? And because of this opportunity that I've been given by women in games, I started meeting more women and so that people are actually interested, but because of the biases and the way we've been trained, it's really hard to find women to say, I'll go into game and spend all hours at work coding without taking care of my family. Like the bias comes from, don't you have children you take care of? So if you spend all your hours at work, what time are you going to come home and take care of the children you've left behind? But I think meeting other women also via, as many realize that you could balance this, and it's been interesting to discover that that's very much possible. Balancing coding, gaming, and also a family. And also, I mean, for me, as an intern at Magic Carpet, I go to work and I come back home and I still have to do house chores. And it's just a balance. And also other things like personal game jams on my own, tutorials, and just keep learning and getting better at my craft. For the organizations in Africa, and especially Nigeria, we have so many people that are trying to create try to make the industry better. We have TCK zones, which is dedicated at teaching children from the ages of 7 to 18 out to be in tech. So gaming classes, software front end development, and also back end development, web development, just trying to train children. We have Africa Communicate, which I had the opportunity to be a part of this last August. Africa Communicate was designed to bring different countries in Africa together and just let us know each other in gaming and design each part of, just kind of like create an atmosphere where we're comfortable enough to put ourselves on the global scale, because it's so difficult for us to push African games. And it's so hard to also find African games. So we are stuck playing all these foreign games, but we never get to see representation or our own stories in the games that are in the world. So that was kind of the whole idea of that event. And it was a week-long event. We had speakers from across the world. We had Vincent Former of Angry Birds come in and speak. We had Aram Twain of Letty Arts in Ghana. We had Mata from Brother University in the Netherlands. We also had an esports athlete come on board and talk to people and encourage other Africans and Nigerians that it's possible for you to come into gaming and do it as a career. While monetization is still a problem in Nigeria and Africa, because there is not much enough disposable income to decide that you want to start spending money on playing games or paying for games on Steam or Xbox and PlayStation, even buying the console, because once the exchange rate comes in, it's really difficult for someone that's not in the middle class spectrum to be able to afford that. So that's where the gaming centers kind of make money from. So you go pay for 1 hour, play a game, and come out and just kind of feel happy about the fact that you've made games. And it was just a wonderful opportunity to also teach people, because we partnered with TCK Zone and taught some children how to use Build Box, and just know that it's free, so you can make games on your own, something small. And we also had a jam towards the end of the week. It was very interesting seeing the ideas that people could come up with just a very simple topic. I enjoy participating in jams, because just 3 days and you just have to see how innovative you can get with the topic that you are given. And from the jam, we were able to give prizes, cash prizes, scholarships for 15 people to a course in Blue Crest University. We also gave tickets to Women in Games conference that happened in September, and also had their names go forward for the Humble Bundle Black Game Developer Fund. And that's just how it's been. And I'm really looking forward to the growth in the industry in Africa, because we have so many bright-minded people and just people that are very excited and looking forward to monetizing this industry. And not just, the passion is there, but it's a bit hard to convince parents or your peers that you want to go into gaming, and it's really hard to like get money back from it or profit. So it's like, why are you doing something that's not going to pay you forward? But with Twitch and streaming and esports, it's been wonderful to kind of like show people that yes, people are making money from these things, especially esports tournaments that happen with the Afro Gamer, which is an esports industry in Nigeria, esports company, sorry, and just seeing people actively participating in these events, and also knowing that, okay, and sometimes people come and say they want to play African games, and it's very exciting that with time we're introducing African games into the esports challenges. Like we have What King for Malio Games, and just we have Orion too from a company in Cameroon, and just all these games that keep coming up. And I'm excited that I get to be a part of that, and also encourage other girls that are coming behind me that it's possible for you to make games and also balance a home if that's what you like, or just do whatever you want, be an artist, a programmer, be a writer, a journalist, or anything that makes you interested in gaming. For me, I plan to, and like I'll say I plan to, but I'm in COVID and the crisis in my nation right now. I can't really say, but I should be graduating next year from computer engineering, and I'm hoping to finally do a master's in games programming and just kind of solidify and get myself that certificate in gaming, because I really looked forward to that growing up, but I couldn't do that. So yeah, I guess that's one of the very few ways that I have been trying to like get involved in the industry, and also seeing things through being a student and juggling interest in gaming in Nigeria has been an interesting part, because I know some people have not had it easy as I did. I can't I can't tone down the privilege I've had, because people have access to laptops like I have, and some people have to borrow laptops or go into public libraries. And we also don't have functioning public libraries for that. So this is one of the ways that I'm glad for the ambassadorship, so I can encourage other people behind me and just let them know that it's possible. And no matter what you want to do, you can make it in the industry and also become anyone you want to be in the gaming industry. So thank you guys. I look forward to your questions on how to enter the industry or how I've been coping so far, I guess. Thank you.
Thank you, Joy. That was really good. As she's said, any questions, drop them on the Q&A. Please do. Looking forward to answering all your questions. If there is somebody in particular you'd like to answer that question, do drop their name. Next up, we have Liz, and she'll be talking about programming murder by numbers.
Hey everybody, bear with me while I just get set up. All right, cool. Can you see my screen? I mean, if not, somebody wave and flail your arms and let me know.
You're good. We can see your screen.
Cool. All right, hi everybody. So my name's Liz Wright, and today I'm going to be talking to you about my experience programming Murder by Numbers and some of the lessons that I learned. So first of all, a bit about me. I studied computer science at Brunel University. During my time there, I spent about a year as a software engineer for startup companies. After graduating, I joined Mediatonic. I was a member of their core tech team, trying to make tools that could be used across all of our game projects. I also branched off to help develop Mediatonic's build system, because that was relatively it could definitely be developed as I started going into it. Eventually I took ownership of it, and I affectionately got the title Build Master. It was around this point where I was offered the position to be lead programmer for Murder by Numbers, and I absolutely leapt at the chance. It would also help for me to talk about what is Murder by Numbers. Murder by Numbers is a visual novel puzzle game mashup in the style of a camp 90s crime drama. You play as Honor, an actor turned rookie detective who solves cases with the help of her inquisitive robot sidekick Scout, which is, gosh, one hell of a tagline. The gameplay largely consists of you interviewing characters, kind of going through a dialogue system. You then search for evidence, which can be identified by solving nonogram puzzles, and then using that evidence in conversations to progress through the story. So with all of that context, that's hopefully enough to kind of jump into some of the advice and things that I kind of picked up while I was making the game. First off, sometimes a small amount of tooling can save a lot of time. Because I was the only programmer for the majority of the project, sometimes it was hard for other team members to ask for quality of life requests that would require my input. After all, it's not a feature, it's not going into the game, we have that schedule. It was a difficult hurdle to pass because part of that mentality is right. My time was valuable, but on the flip side of that, we're a small team. We only had one program at the time, but we also only had one writer and we only had one game designer. So their time is also valuable. From my point of view, if I could reduce the amount of manually monotonous work from another team member, it's always worth having that conversation. Best example of this is probably the character markup tool. So there was a point where the team were talking about adding emotes into the game. This would just kind of help us increase the amount of expressions we get out of characters. So maybe you'd get a teardrop slide animation or an exasperated sigh. But we had an issue where our characters were quite diverse, varied in height. On top of that, every character had their own set of poses, which could also vary in height. So to get something that looked a bit more professional, we had to adjust the height of every emote per character and per pose. Imagining having to do this manually, where you had to load up one particular image and all of the emotes into an image editor, drag everything to the correct place, make a note of its position, write it down, copy and paste it, change out your initial image, rinse and repeat, was just a terrible, terrible thought. So I let the team know that it was relatively simple for me to make a tool in Unity, and it was worth the time investment to do so. At that point, I made the character markup tool. Because it was in Unity, it had enough kind of sense to know that given this character, these are all of their poses. It would load in that one character, all of the emotes would also get loaded. It was a few seconds for you to drag it to the correct place. It was one click to save all of the position data and move on to the next character. Drastic increase in time. Don't be afraid to use existing third-party tools, especially if your use case calls for it. For some programmers, there's this stigma around using third-party tools. Real programmers will make it themselves. A much more rational approach is to assess your team's needs and requirements, consider where they are currently and where they'll be in the future, weigh up potential options, make an informed decision. And that's exactly what I did when we were looking for implementing the dialogue system. This was kind of the part of the game that would handle text and conversations. Visual novel games are a well-established genre, so there were already likely to be a variety of tools. We were looking for something that would be accessible both for myself as a programmer and for our writer. And most importantly, it needed to be flexible because at this point, it was very early on in the project. This was one of the first things we decided on. So the features could still change down the line. In the end, we decided to go with Yarn Spinner. Yarn Spinner was an absolute dream for us. It's a simple yet powerful dialogue engine that can give you an insane amount of flexibility as long as you're willing to put your own process on top. Yarn Spinner can read in dialogue files and will either send a line of dialogue for your game to handle. It can also read a selection from a group of options, which means it has support for branching narrative. And it also had functionality for custom commands, which was the real key part for us. Custom commands were kind of Yarn's way of saying, oh, it needs to do something, but you sort of figure out what it is. And we used this for anything from posing characters, playing sound effects, showing event art, the tutorial, almost every part of the tutorial was handled in these commands. It was an interesting way of teaching somebody how to solve a nonogram puzzle. In the end, we had about 45 unique commands that we had made. And even each one of those had their own sets of variables, so could be tweaked even further. Take the time to understand the root need of your requests. For the majority of development, my day-to-day was getting a design spec or specification from the team, planning and implementing that feature, handing it over with instructions, documentations. Most likely parts of that would be written up, and I'd be passing over functioning yarn commands to kind of give you that added, the extra bit of functionality. I found it very important to make sure that I was understanding why we needed that feature or how it was going to be used, because sometimes digging deeper revealed that alternatives were that there might be alternatives that could help us save on, time or complexity. The way we implemented text boxes is a nice example of this. When I first received the spec for text boxes, the initial suggestion was to have one text box that could vary in size, shape, position, justification, font size, and background, a few other things on the line. The idea was to make it flexible, that it would work for pretty much any use case. Although this was possible, this amount of customization would have been time consuming. There were a few areas that I foresaw where it could also be a bit error prone. After catching up with the team, I explained that it would be easier for me to add a small amount of distinct text boxes than to have that one variable one. After having that conversation, we went over the scenarios in which they were actually planning to use the text box, and we narrowed it down to 3 types. Admittedly, later down the line, we did add an extra one for the tutorial, but honestly, the amount of time this saved by just plugging in those text boxes was very helpful to me. Keep your project stable. I guess this applies to any program where we're not just in games anymore. Looking back on Murder by Numbers, we really benefited from having a consistently stable build. It was very rare for a team member to be blocked by the game just sort of falling over, and we could confidently make playable builds if requested out of the blue. Fundamentally, I actually just think that this is good programming practice, to be mindful of how your changes can have knock-on effects in other areas. But it's also worth considering that most programming teams do have things to kind of help you keep on track of this particular point. So, for example, pull requests mean that you can have other people review your code and changes before it gets merged into master. You can also have automated tests for your system. Unfortunately, given my scenario, I wasn't familiar enough with Unity's test suite at the time to make my own automated tests. And as the only programmer for a good chunk of the project, I couldn't ask for a pull request, or at least not get a response in a timely manner. So I couldn't really use those. Instead, I created my own test room. This is a background you won't find in the game. Something that I just kind of made purely for the sake of testing out various bits of functionality. It was sort of my own area. I did later share it with the team, but it basically became a way for me to quickly boot up the game, jump into some example dialogue, and just run through every yarn command. It would take me a couple of minutes just to look at it and check there was nothing wrong. But having something like this set up was a huge safety net. It really helped me spot any potential issues early. It's always great to have your own test environment. All right, gonna go through the rest of these a bit more quickfire. So take care of yourself. It's very important for you to stay mindful of your physical and mental health when working in general. I know it sort of sounds like a generic self-help tip, but while I was working with Murder by Numbers, I had the most distinct example for this. There was one particular feature I was working on to help implement the map system. So you changing location in game and being able to lock and unlock certain functionalities. On the surface, it was a very simple feature. However, as it kind of got worked on and changed, I realized that it was becoming difficult to extend. It was buggy. Eventually, much further down the line, I caved and I had to rewrite part of that section. And I was trying to rack my brain over it, thinking, you know, how did I get to this point? And when I look back on it, and I was just like, oh, when you first planned and wrote this, you were ill, and you probably should have taken that time off. In fact, honestly, looking back at it, it was probably cheaper for me to ultimately just take that time off. Take care of yourself. You write better code when you're well. Play your game often. Helps with testing. It's a good pick-me-up. You should always take time to appreciate what you've made. Also, a bit more subtly, but very important, it helps you appreciate what other team members have made. I didn't realize this because this was my first games project but 9 times out of 10, other team members won't appreciate that what they've made is very awesome. They're far too close to it. It's actually good for you to take time out, play the game, and then tell the team members that, oh, that particular bit was actually really funny, or the way that scene was set up was just super interesting. It was so well done. They'll really appreciate it. And finally, remember that you can do this. So for me, this was my first commercial game. I had doubts. I had bouts of imposter syndrome. It's very important to remind yourself that you are capable. I also very much benefited from having a skilled support network. I got help from my manager, my peers. Honestly, our company is so friendly. I could have walked into the kitchen and just got somebody to help me out and they wouldn't have batted an eyelid. But for me personally, I was in a position where, you know, my background was more software dev and around tooling. I did have some Unity experience, like actual gameplay experience, but it was mostly through game jams. But despite that, I still got the opportunity and managed to help make something amazing. So if you're at a position where you're kind of in software development and you really have a passion for games, go for it. Take those steps. If you're still kind of deciding on what area you want to move towards, but you're kind of just starting with programming, I'd highly recommend games. It is a fantastic experience. If that's what interests you, go for it. We will always appreciate just having more good programmers. All right, well, thanks for listening. The game that I've been going on about is available on Steam, Switch. We recently just released a sexy new physical edition, if you prefer that kind of copy. If you're interested in where I work, Mediatonic, it is a fantastic place. If you're looking for a new area, I would highly recommend it. And if you want to get in touch, you can catch me on Twitter. I'm still trying to figure Twitter out, but I'm sure it will be fine. And yeah, if you have any questions, post them in the Q&A and we'll get to them at the end.
Thank you very much, Liz. Hey, everybody. As everybody keeps on saying before I come on, don't forget to pop your questions in the Q&A section. We've got a good few questions in there. Really looking forward to having those answered. Next up, we have Alexis. She's going to be talking about finding your space.
Hi, thanks, Chantel. Chantel, oh my God, I'm sorry. Give me a second. I'm going to briefly disappear and then you'll see me in all my glory again when I share my screen. In the meantime, I'll just talk awkwardly. As it happens, I was kind of looking at the QA section and my talk happens to be a little bit more aimed at finding a place for you in the video games industry. So I will end up covering a couple of these. All right. Can everyone see me now? Is it good? Okay, cool. Thanks. Hi, everybody. My name is Alexis Russell. I am a producer in the video games industry. I work for a company called Guerrilla Games, which is well known for Killzone and then more recently Horizon Zero Dawn. A producer is a project management position, essentially. I don't know why we call it producer in AAA, but that's what it is. I have been playing video games pretty much my entire life, like a lot of the panelists on here. But despite that, I honestly had never really thought about it as a career. It was just kind of by luck that I took an internship later on when I was in university at a media company, and I happened to see a pitch deck for somebody saying like, oh, I want to make a mobile game out of one of the IPs that your company is working on. And that was literally the first time I was like, oh my God, people actually make video games for a living. And I very quickly after that was like, oh, that's what I'm going to do. I want to do that. But I had no idea about the industry and I didn't know what I was going to do. So if you are kind of in that position where you know you want to work in games, but you don't really know a whole lot about the industry, I think a good first place to start is looking at the, oops, can't turn the thing. Oh my God, go to the next slide. Okay, cool. A good thing to look at first is the different kind of development sectors. Now, this is how I divided up the development industry. There are no hard lines between what the different kind of sectors are, but it'll help you get a clearer picture of the general areas you could go. By indie, what I'm talking about here is a smaller game company, usually only a handful of people. Oops. Typically shorter development cycles as well. A game might take a couple of years or less. And the nice thing about being in India is because generally there's not a person that's like giving you a ton of money and saying you have to make the thing I want. There's a lot more freedom involved in that. But it does also mean there's a lot more kind of inherent risk of you're kind of out there on your own. AAA is very much the opposite end of that spectrum. So if you think about indie games as being indie movies, AAA would be Hollywood movies. They'd be like your Marvel blockbusters that come out every fall. And AAA games actually do generally come out in the fall. AAA games tend to have gigantic teams. So I'm talking like several hundred people in a development studio. And on top of that, you're going to have hundreds of other people working in outsourcing and publishing, et cetera, which means there's a ton of moving parts at any given time. No one person has a very clear picture of what's happening everywhere. But it's really cool because you're solving very large problems that a smaller team might not be able to address as well. There's a lot of people with really hyper specialized focuses. So you get to kind of work on a lot more technically elaborate feats than you might if you were a smaller team. Mobile and online, there is a huge difference or a huge amount of variety in these two industries. So mobile, anything on your phone, online, I'm talking about, League of Legends to Fortnite to auto chess. There's a lot of different variety in there. But the reason I grouped them together is because they tend to be like persistent games. So they have shorter development cycles, but then they keep iterating on them over the years. So you might be working on the same project 5 to 10 years out. For example, World of Warcraft is what came out 17 years ago or something. EverQuest, you can still play the 2002 version or something. So that's kind of the big difference there. Core tech is not, what I mean by core tech is actually not game development, but rather developing the tools that other people will use to make games. So you can work for Unity, for example. You can work on the new Unreal 5 engine that's coming out. And even though you're not going to be making like something that somebody sits down and plays, you get to be on like the bleeding edge of that technology. So there's a lot of different places in the industry, but you might be like, oh my God, what am I going to do? Well, the first question when picking a sector is really just, what do you play? If you really like Assassin's Creed, then maybe you're a person that wants to play AAA games. If you really, really like Minecraft, maybe you should go into online. But regardless of what you play, the kind of dirty truth that most people don't want to tell you is you don't actually have to love the game that you're working on, but it's probably good for you to like the environment you're working in. So the other thing you might want to consider is, what is the product style and what's your ideal team look like? So if you're the type of person that really likes kind of dipping your toes in a lot of different things, you want your hands in every part of this game, you want to try out programming, but you also want to do some music, or you want to do VFX. Indie gaming tends to be more well suited for that. They're smaller teams, so it's kind of helpful for someone to be able to jump around a lot. Now, if you like working in a super complex project that has a lot of moving pieces, you really like being surrounded by a bunch of experts so that you can come together to come up with a new thing, AAA does that all the time. They're big teams and you're coordinating quite a lot with other people. You're frequently in meetings with like 12 other people trying to figure out, how do I make the character climb? Stuff like that. Oops, gave it away. Mobile and online might be good if you're a kind of person who considers yourself a tinkerer. If you like the idea of working on something and just always improving it and continuing to make new features and kind of growing up and evolving along with the game, various types of mobile games, various types of online games tend to have that sort of model. And finally, if you really just love being on the edge of technology, like you don't necessarily care if anybody plays it, but you want to be like, yeah, I created this really cool thing that everybody's going to use for the next 6 years or whatever. Core technical teams working for engine teams or different softwares like Houdini or Maya is also an option that a lot of people overlook. Regardless of what sector you pick, you still have to figure out what job you want in it. So I'm going to list out some programming jobs. This is with a AAA focus, but for the most part, all of these should exist across the board to varying degrees. First, if we look at the people who are kind of working in the game itself, you'll have back-end programmers and front-end programmers similar to web development. We don't actually call them that, but it's kind of an easier way to think of it. So by back-end programmers, I'm talking about, a lot of times they're called like graphics engineers are back-end programmers. A lot of times they're just called like tech code. I don't know why they have very vague names, but back-end programmers are going to be the people who are working on the systems that everything else is built on top of. For example, they might be working on the lighting rendering that affects everything in the whole world. They might be working on the physics that affect how everything falls. Those people are doing really sweeping changes, but it's also very, it's really dense work. It's generally regarded as not that sexy because it's something that end players tend to not really notice, but these people are making a huge difference in terms of the final content of the game. Front-end programmers, this is a whole swath of programming jobs actually. So you might have a character programmer, weapons programmer, UI programmer, vehicles programmer, gameplay programmer. There's a whole load of jobs that kind of fit in this category. And these are people that are usually working on individual systems of the game. So if you're a weapons programmer, you're going to be working on how weapons work. They might also be doing a lot of the logic of how games are set up. So for example, when the player passes this particular spot, it's going to trigger X event, and then now the objective is going to change to Y. Outside of the people who are working directly on the game, there's a whole swath of support programmers and engineers. So build engineers is totally what Liz did, still does. Build engineers are the people that make sure that everybody has a copy of the game that's working. Specifically, if we're talking about AAA, you've got hundreds of people checking things in multiple times a day. And a single project is going to end up with, I'm not exaggerating, something like 10 million changes by the end of the project. Build engineers are the people who merge all that stuff and make sure that the developers can get copies of the game that are working so everybody can build and test with the latest stuff. And they also make sure the final end person gets the product. Similar to build engineers, you also have server engineers who do a very similar job. They make sure that thousands of people can get the patch at the same time, or hundreds of thousands of players can play a game at the same time. There's a lot of tools engineers as well. This is a kind of a broad category. So frequently they're called, it's the tools team, tools engineers. They might be called tech artists. They might be called tech animation. You might have all three of them. Basically, developers use a number of tools when they're making games that aren't the engine itself. So for example, artists very frequently use a tool called Maya to build assets. There's other tools that you can use to take motion capture data from a film shoot and turn it into the animations that your character used. These are typically all third-party programs, and they don't necessarily always work well with your engine. So the tools team, the tech animation team, the tech tools team, or tech art team, and people in this category make sure all of that stuff works really nicely together. The final thing I'm going to shout out is actually my own branch, which is not programming at all. I'm a producer, and what we do is we are in charge of the timelines and the overall quality of the project. What this means is we spend most of our days coordinating efforts between people. If there's a big problem that we see coming down the road that is going to take a lot of R&D, we organize teams around solving that. The other major thing we do is just constantly check people's workloads to make sure that we can hit things on time. And if there is too much work, then that's when we kind of go into high gear working with other teams and saying, hey, can we remove this? Or can we find a solution that is less taxing to the team? And sorting that out so that hopefully there's extremely minimal crunch / no crunch. That's the dream. So what can you do after you pick, your programming job, what your path is going to be after you pick a development sector? The first thing I would really recommend is look up people that do the work that you want to do and start reaching out to them. See if you can get an informational interview, if you can meet in person or, Zoom call, send emails back and forth. Especially for those of you that are maybe younger or in school. When I was in school and I asked people for informational interviews, they were so excited to help me because they're like, oh my God, you're so adorable. I want to help you out. But even in general, people surprisingly want to help you. And there's like no downside. The worst that happens, and I know I'm guilty of this, is like somebody sends you a message and you don't see it for like 4 months. But nobody's going to yell at you. So reach out. The real benefits of this is if you don't know exactly what you want to do, or even if you do have a good idea what you want to do, talking to somebody that's already in that position, they will be able to confirm your suspicions and you'll be like, oh, awesome, this is where I want to go. Or they'll say a lot of things that you're like, ooh, I actually didn't want any of this. And maybe it'll redirect you and towards a path that's even better for you. If you do want to do the thing that this person does, the other thing they can help you with is really tailoring your career path in terms of being like, hey, these are the sorts of people that you should talk to or follow. These are the sort of skills that you need to know, programs that you should work on, etc. The next easy step is just practice. Whatever skill you have that you think is marketable, just do it. And even if it's like you don't directly know how you're going to use it one day, do it anyway, just practice. It's really helpful. You're probably going to have to take a test in order to get a job one day. So make sure that stuff is up to snuff. Finally, get involved in the developer community. There's a lot of ways to do this. There's, Facebook groups, LinkedIn groups, especially for a lot of minorities. There's, obviously Coding Black Females. There's Game Devs of Color. There's Women in Gaming. There's a lot of organizations that can help you they form a source of support emotionally, first and foremost, but they can also lead you to other job opportunities or tell you about information that you may not have known otherwise. There's, especially for programmers, I know there's a lot of websites where you can kind of put codes that you've made, and which is like, I think, a really good way to put something out there. You might get it reviewed by somebody, but you might also impress somebody. If you made a script that works really well for doing vertex painting, which is really deep into tech art, maybe that's something that somebody finds and is like, hey, that's really cool. And you'll start a relationship with that person. And the last thing that a lot of people have mentioned is find a game jam. They're a really great way to kind of just work on projects in really quick bursts. Keep the creative juices flowing too, in case you're kind of like getting bored with your own personal projects. So keep working. The last thing I'm going to say in terms of a piece of advice is please do something. There is a lot of times where I'll be out in the world at the AT&T store and like somebody finds out I work in video games and then they start asking me all these questions like, oh, that's really awesome. I want to work in video games. And then I say, hey, okay, well, that's cool. What are you doing? And they're not doing anything. Like they basically just had this idea, but they hadn't put any effort towards it and are hoping that I supply them with like every tool they need and like an interview. Don't be that person. Make sure that you're working forward to be ready for opportunities when they arrive for you. And that's it for me. So thank you very much. That's some of my information, but I think it'll get posted in the chat as well. And I look forward to answering more questions during the Q&A. Stop sharing.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Alexis. That was brilliant. I hope that there are a lot of questions that have been answered, but that there will be more questions that you want to ask everyone. Okay, so next up, last but not least, we have Danielle, and she'll be talking about bringing culture to The Sims. Ready, Danielle?
Yeah, I'm good to go. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Awesome. All right, so I'm going to start sharing my screen. Hello, everyone. I'm Danielle. I also go by Ebonics or Ebonics Sims Online. If you are a Simmer, then you'll know me for the content that I make for The Sims 4. But if you are not really too sure about The Sims or you don't really know what it is, I'm going to introduce you to a world of culture. And that is what I love to do. I am bringing today culture to The Sims. So let me make sure that this is sharing. Awesome. Okay, so make sure it's full screen. Awesome. So again, hello everyone. I'm Danielle, also known as Ebonics. So that's my logo. If you are a Simmer, or you watch anyone that plays The Sims, whether you watch them on Twitch, on YouTube, you'll know this logo if they play with custom content. So what I've been doing over the last 5 years is simming and meddling. I'm obsessed with seeing us in games. And The Sims for me really means a lot because it's a game that I've been playing for more than half my life. 20 years The Sims have been out. I've been playing The Sims for 20 years. So it's a game that really kind of resonated really strongly with me. And I guess kind of why I've taken out so much time to make content for it. So I chose the name Ebonics initially when I joined Tumblr in 2015. And that's where there's a lot of custom content that people can download for their games. But all of the hairstyles that you see in the pictures that I'm going, or in the presentation, are hairstyles that I've made for The Sims. So what you can see here, you've got dreads, you've got braids, you've got curls, afros. Literally, it's a sad tale to say, but we're gonna keep that for later. We're gonna keep it for later. But for now, I've always been a gamer. I've been playing games from as early as, I'm not that old, but my first little system was Atari. My dad was obsessed with Atari, and that's kind of where my gaming venture started. And then as it elevated, I was also into Nintendo, my Game Boys, and then when I got a PC, it was the Cartoon Network and the Disney Channel games that used to play online. So all of those was all me. But then when I got into The Sims on my first Windows 95 dial-up connection days, that's when I had my first opportunity to play The Sims. So a lot of you are probably wondering, what is custom content? So custom content is game community generated content, and it doesn't come as part of the main game. So people add these additional modifications to the game to give it a little bit of extra, like a bit of oomph. So I made this hair. I don't know if you guys can see it because I might be in the way. I was moving to the side because I usually have my green screen up and you know what, okay, I would usually be moving out the way. But the Sim that you can see in the picture, I made her hairstyle. However, she would look like a potato without the skin tone, the lip gloss, the eyelashes, which are all custom content, which the community has made. And I got into creating my own CC really when I began to feel like I could not play a game that represented me. Hair has always been a major it's been a major part of my life. You know, I'm one to change my hair frequently. Every 2 weeks I'd rock up to my workplace and they wouldn't know who I am because I changed my hair. So it's it's one of those where hair really has a massive impact on my life. And that's why I really focused on learning how to make my own hair. And I didn't feel as though The Sims gave me the content I needed to fully represent myself. So I was like, okay, let's do this. And the rest is history, really. Essentially, I started making content because I was off work for 7 months and I wanted to, I was playing The Sims, something that I did kind of on and off, and I wanted the dashiki. And I kind of started off wanting to play, had a little party going, wanted to put my sim in a dashiki, and there was no dashiki. So I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna learn how to make a dashiki today. And again, the rest is history. But boy. I don't know about you, but whenever I play a game and it gives me the option to create a character, I'm instinctively and always going to want to make a character that looks like me. End of. I will always cycle through and look for the afro, look for the braids, look for the dreads, anything that I know will represent me. And one of the most disheartening things is that you'll either find limited or absolutely zero content, which would enable you to make a character that you wanted and that represents you. So, you know, it's been really important for me to bring representation to The Sims because it's a game that, again, it's key. Representation is key, and it's a game that has been so important for me for more than half of my life. And I wanted to be able to see myself in game, but also allow others to see themselves in games. There was a point a few years ago when there was a lady who approached me when I was, you know, fairly new into my creation process, and there was a lady who asked me if I could make a hairstyle for that her niece had in her pictures, because her niece had really, really, you know, low self-confidence, and she just didn't like, you know, looking at herself, but she loved The Sims. So she asked me if I could make a hairstyle that was fairly similar to hers. And I did that. I put it out there for everyone, and she downloaded it and then got back to me a few weeks later and was so appreciative that I was able to allow her niece to see herself in the game literally for the first time. And it changed how she saw herself. And so that's why representation is key. Being able, and from such a young age, because her niece was only about 7 or 8 at that point. And so representation is really key, because I myself, from a young age, when I used to play The Sims, I didn't really make Black Sims because there wasn't content available in the game. And even now, as a base game for The Sims 4, there's 64 hairstyles, but only about 7 or 8 of them have a kink or coil in them. So, you know, it's a massive disparity between how diverse and, you know, culturally representative The Sims claims to be, but is it really? So, you know, that's why I'm so determined to bring as much representation into The Sims. So it's important for creativity. I mean, I have unlimited access to inspiration because the world is my muse. I can go outside and see someone's hair and be like, I want to make that. I'm going to make it in The Sims. I love it. I just want to have it. And, you know, I can be as creative as I want to. And I mean, when it comes to us, there's so much inspiration to take from. Our hair is so diverse. It comes in so many different textures and styles and colors. And, you know, I've got the opportunity to try and capture us in all of our beauty. And I mean, I hope you can see all of the pictures, but I've really been able to be super creative with how I allow our Sims to look and feel represented. And even the babies, like there are little kids playing The Sims. I'm a part of a group called the Black Simmer, and there's always parents showing their children playing The Sims and making Sims. And so for me, it's even as important to make content for the babies, because if they're looking to make a sim that looks like them, there's no content available. I'm here to give that to them. So yeah, so I'm allowed to be as creative and representative as possible. And so with inspiration, I was recently reached out to by a writer who's writing about young Black Sims 4 creators. And they interviewed four young people, and they all mentioned me as someone who inspired them. And that blows my mind and my wig a little bit. I'm somewhat, you know, I still am finding it mind-blowing that something that started out as just me wanting a dashiki has turned into inspiring a whole new generation of content creators. And this can have a snowball effect. Each of those 4 creators will go on to inspire 4 of their own, producing 16 new content creators who, you know, are adding to representation within the community. Inspiring others to see the importance of representation is game-changing. And so it's super important, because it doesn't stop at The Sims. The skills and stuff that you learn how to make this kind of content, you can carry on over to pretty much anything when it comes to 3D modeling. And new skills. a self-taught 3D artist. I haven't gone to school to do any of this. Zero school, zero any. I'm a psychologist by trade. I went to university. I have a psychology and counseling degree. You know, it's not doing much right now, but you know, it's there in a frame. So, you know, mum's happy with that. But I decided that this was my calling, this was my passion, and I wanted to really change how people see themselves in the game. So it enables me to pick up so many new skills and that's all around the 3D modeling aspect. So yeah, sorry, that's it. Next slide. So what kind of programs do I use to make this content? So one of the main programs that I use is Blender. Blender is a free 3D modeling software. And it is widely available and they update frequently all the time. And they've got quite a few new updates as well. And it makes it really easy for you to learn. They have loads of tutorials on YouTube, even just how to get started as a basic. But I also use Maya when there's some, you know, a bit more complexities when it comes to certain 3D models. And when it comes to textures and texturing, I use Photoshop and Procreate as well. And again, a lot of what I've learned is self-taught. I haven't gone to school for any of it. I just kind of picked up a YouTube tutorial and then I tied the knowledge together. So not a lot of my knowledge that I know now is being picked from loads of different YouTube tutorials, and I've sewed it up into one kind of quilt. And that's what my knowledge is. It's just loads of different things from different places tied into one. So accomplishments, gosh. Again, I didn't think any of this would derive from making Wondershiki. However, I've been really fortunate to have my work and content featured on many really major gaming platforms, including BBC News and Polygon, Vice, The Guardian, Red Bull Gaming, and so many more. And it's just incredible because it's the conversation. It's the conversation that the world is having. Representation matters. Why is it important that we have representation in games? And what do we need to do in order to make sure that our games are being produced and being more representative of everyone, including us? Because again, it's a sorrowful tale when you go to open up a game, and it's not just The Sims. There's loads of games. There's a mobile game as well where you have to pay like 600 gems for an afro. And, you know, those are the kind of things, those microaggressions where making us is extra difficult and extra hard. And I'm really sorry, but as a self-taught 3D artist, I'm pretty sure that there's really, really talented artists out there, and there's no excuse why your game should not be as representative as they can be. So for me, this is just the beginning. I've only been doing this for 5 years, and for 4 of those years, I was doing it part-time. I only became a full-time content creator last year. So, and within this 1 year, a lot of what you've just seen in terms of the accomplishments have happened. So I'm really excited about the next 5 years. So I'm also a Twitch partner. And so we were talking about Twitch earlier as well. And I'm actually the UK's first Black female Twitch partner. There's quite a few in the US, but in the UK, I was the first Black female Twitch partner, which was awesome. It was an amazing achievement. It's again, representation is so key. It's so key. And being able to be on this platform and advocate for us as Black female gamers as well, it's so it's amazing. It's really, really amazing. So yes, I am a Twitch streamer, and I actually don't make custom content on this on stream. It's actually a way for me to play games because I am a gamer at the end of the day. But it allowed me to start branching out and building up my community. I started streaming on Twitch consistently in November. So I was already a Twitch affiliate at that point, because I dabbled in streaming here and there, but it was, I had work priorities, and then I had to make the custom content, and that is very time consuming. So there's also that. I know it is very, very time consuming making 3D models and actually making sure that they look good. But then I became a full-time content creator, and then I was able to advocate more time to Twitch. And then I was partnered in February this year during my visit to the Twitch headquarters in San Francisco, where they invited me out for their Black History Month summit. And that was really amazing. And I was surrounded by, as you can see in the picture, loads of really, really promising and amazing trailblazers within the Twitch community. So achieving Twitch partnership, as a Black female in the UK, I achieved this with us in mind, and I want to see us on this platform. I want us to be celebrated more as a minority within a minority within a minority, which is also why I have co-founded Black Twitch UK. I co-founded Black Twitch UK with my friend Cassie. You can follow us on Black Twitch UK. And also follow both me and Cassie. And it's a platform designed to highlight and support Black Twitch streamers. It has been so hard to find Black streamers in the UK. I have no problem finding Black US streamers, African American streamers I can find a plethora of. But trying to find Black streamers within the UK, someone that you can have banter with, someone that you know the know, you know the know, you know the know. And so me and my friend founded Black Twitch UK so that we could connect with each other and also raise up together, because it's all good and fun, being a Twitch partner, but I also want to bring up others who are within my vicinity who don't get as much of a platform and a voice to showcase their content. So we've had really two amazing events. Our first one was Twitch Hill. So obviously because of COVID, there was no Notting Hill Carnival this year. So me and Cassie took Notting Hill to Twitch, and we hosted Twitch Hill. And it was great. We had loads of giveaways. We had Gymshark get involved and makeup and everything. So please feel free to go back and watch it. And then we also hosted Black History Month 2020, which was showcased on Twitch's front page this year as well. And that was fantastic. We had loads of speakers, poetry, readings, a showcase of over 50 Black UK Twitch streamers as well. So I do hope you guys enjoy that if you do get a chance to watch it. So with the future of representation, for me, what I feel needs to change are, of course, better creator character options. We are in 2020. There should be no need that we are limited by the amount of content that is available to create ourselves accurately. Those days are gone. I do get it from an indie perspective where hiring 3D artists can be quite expensive, which is why I do think there does need to be a directory. I don't know if anyone knows of Turbo Squid or CG Trader. So those platforms have free models on there that I'm assuming a lot of indie game developers use to make their games. They're using these models to make their games. However, the issue with those platforms is that if you search, for example, like Black woman, you're searching and you're going, you're 6 pages deep and you're still looking for a Black woman. And then when you do find one, it's a caricature type character. So it's not one that you would actually want to see in a game. So there definitely does need to be a change in kind of what's available so that even indie games as well have the ability to make their games as representative as possible. But this also can start by, hiring more Black devs, or there being a directory of Black 3D artists for hire. Like, all of these options are available, and I know they're out there because I follow them all on Twitter. I follow all of them on Twitter, and they're freelance or they've got their own sites, but no one is really using their content or hiring them. So all of that needs to change. and talking to Black and POC communities and trailblazers and leaders who specialize in diversity consultation. There's no need in 2020 for us to still be having issues like lack of readily available content or putting out our Black Lives Matter fist in your propaganda type game. There's no need for it. So there does need to be better communication and connection with these kind of communities, with these game studios. So future goals and aspirations for myself. I definitely want to continue championing in the field. I want to keep the conversation going. I don't think I'll ever be able to stop talking about the fact that I want to be able to make a character that looks like me. I want my kids or my grandkids or all of your kids. I want all of your kids to be able to pick up a controller and have no issue making a character that looks like them. It's been 5 years I've been doing this. So I have really, really high hopes for the next 5 years. And especially as the gaming industry is recognizing the importance of representation. I'm really excited for Miles Morales. Oh my God. They did such a good job on him, and my mind is blown by how much attention to detail that they've played. So I think, we're getting there slowly but surely, but it needs to be a bit quicker because there's games coming out with a quickness. But yeah, so I definitely still want to be in this industry. And I'm technically freelance. I do my own thing. So I still feel like I want to do my own thing because I feel that games everywhere need some help, not just one particular company. But yeah, so thank you for listening. Please feel free to follow me on these socials, Ebonic Sims, everywhere you look, Ebonic Sims. But yes, thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Danielle. That was amazing. So if everyone's ready, we're going to kick off the Q&A now. Okay, so the first question that we are going to be answering is from Jubilee, and she says, what can I do as a young Black woman studying computing to prepare myself for the world of gaming in tech? Does anybody in particular want to take this one? Okay, I'm going to call out Liz on this one.
So that's sort of interesting. On occasion, I'd be like, well, maybe it depends on what level. But honestly, gut feeling, if you want to kind of prepare for like gaming, make games. There are some amazing tutorials. I would highly recommend jumping onto Unity. They've recently released most of their learning platform. Unity Learn is now openly available to anybody. And it's fantastic for just kind of teaching you some of the basics, or if you have a particular area to go into, there's lots of content. And being totally biased, we're able to make Murdered by Numbers with it. Our entire studio uses it. Yeah, try and make games.
Can I extend the answer? So when I saw this question, I wasn't sure whether you meant like technically what do you do to get started, or if you meant like emotionally what to do to prepare yourself. I think Liz did a really great job of explaining the like actually technically, yes, I would say do the things that you need to do to be competitive. So be good at your skill. From an emotional level though, if you're worried about kind of being literally a unicorn in the industry, I have been called a unicorn multiple times. You're probably going to experience some level of othering at some point in your career, if I'm going to be perfectly honest. What I will say is that it is almost always from a place of ignorance and from people that are willing to learn. And especially over the last, like since the summer, basically, I have been able to make so much progress actually talking to coworkers that had really just never thought about these things, had never addressed their own privilege. So I think like you'll get weird comments where you'll be like, but if you feel that you are emotionally strong enough to deal with that, it is very possible to make headway on the social justice front.
Thank you both, Liz and Alexis there. Very nicely answered. do let us know if you wanted any additional information there, Jubilee. Okay, so another question we have that I wanted to share, it was for Aneni. I've somehow managed to lose it. Bear with me 1 second.
Let me unmute
So it's from
myself.
Fatima. She wanted to know, Aneni, about how you got into the field that you did. She's currently an MSc student in digital audio engineering, but has hardly any AI or machine learning experience. So she just wanted to hear about your journey for inspiration, advice on getting into the games and AI industry.
Okay, so I'm not actually in the gaming industry in a professional sense. Everything I know about gaming, I guess developing games is self-taught. Again, just like what Danielle was saying, literally going online, finding tutorials. I found connecting with like a lot of VR developers. Honestly, LinkedIn is your best friend. There's so many forums. If you literally just Google, I don't know, I want to become a game developer, I want to get into this, you'll find so many steps. You'll find people have done their own roadmaps, and you can literally just go and copy it. I already knew how to code in C because I build robots. But C# is the language that is typically quite used often in the game dev world. So I would like say, yeah, just go online, search what other people are doing. When I wanted to play around with Unity and Unreal, C# was my best friend. Yeah, I'm really connecting with other people. If there's a game conference, obviously we're in lockdown, but when we're allowed back outside and stuff, and even I'm sure there's virtual things online, looking for game development conferences. And yeah, you'll be surprised how many people are really willing to help you. And a lot of companies will take interns that have no gaming experience. A lot of the time, they just want to see that you're passionate. So as long as you are really like, okay, I want to do this, they can see that you've made your own projects. Again, if you make projects, please put it on GitHub. I always say to anyone in any programming type of world, if you want to get into programming, coding, always put your stuff on GitHub, because you don't even need a CV, honestly. You can literally rock up to a company and be like, this is my GitHub, this is everything I've made, these are all the games I made in my spare time. And just for being able to like know how to push it onto GitHub and store your code there, you're already a shoe in the door. Even if the code is bad, even if it doesn't make any sense, the fact that you understand that type of world, you've already got brownie points. So yeah, definitely just looking at what other people are doing, connecting with other people within that space, going online, typing in exactly what you want and seeing what other people have done. YouTube, a lot of free resources, your best friend, and udemy.com is also really good.
Thank you, Aneni. Okay, so Olivia wanted to know, are there any games each of you, so all of you, considered to be revolutionary or a trendsetter in the gaming industry?
Trendsetter. I don't know about revolutionary, but I will say at the moment, I'm really liking, in comparison to other FPS games, I'm really liking what Apex is doing. Because I do feel with characters like, if you guys play Apex, characters like Globa, I just feel like Apex has done their best in comparison. It could always be better. When it comes to diversity and inclusion, it could always be better. But I feel, I mean, they've got characters that one of the characters has an almost gay background. So, you know, as you're playing this FPS game, and if you identify as a gay individual, then you feel represented. You can actually play with a character who has that background. There's a female character who isn't the weakling or the, you know, she's not the one that needs to be saved in the game. She's actually one of the strongest people in the game. That's Loba, for example. So yeah, and I think people who might be a little bit sexist, racist, you know, if you've got any prejudices there, they will be forced to play as these characters, because these characters are the strongest characters in the game. If you want to go far, you have to play as the black girl that you maybe don't want to play as. So, you know, it's kind of forcing you to maybe take some of your ideologies out of your head and just be more, I guess, tolerant towards people, and open up your mind to like the possibility that, you know, I can be a black character and I can be awesome. I don't have to be the stereotype. I don't have to do all that kind of thing. So yeah, that's what I love about Apex. I think right now they're getting it right. It could be better. I'm hoping that they come out with like some really dark chocolate sexy male character. Fingers crossed. But at the moment, I like what they're doing. So for me, yeah, it would be Apex.
Joy, do you have one? a favorite game or a game that's really broken some boundaries for you?
Oh, okay. I would say Orion. It's an African game and tells an African story. It won a prize last month, and for me, it's a French game. I'm English speaking, but it was nice seeing representation of an African story. It's a simple games on Steam. You can play it on your PC, and it was really fun just seeing the gameplay. Because I haven't played it, but I watched someone play it, and it was just very interesting. Just the whole story lore and the graphics was really interesting for me. It's kind of like it's pace setter for me because now I can see that African games can be played on a global scale, not just in within our continent.
Thank you, Joy. Alexis, do you have one?
Yes. Well, I mean, basically, I think Breath of the Wild that came out a few years ago, almost every open world game is honestly stealing from that core game design. The thing that it did really, or there's a couple of things that I think you're going to start seeing in all sorts of open world games in the next couple of years, because I've literally been in meetings where people are talking about adding these kind of things, is one, that element of like always seeing the final goal, but having otherwise like your objectives are kind of whatever you want them to be. So you can explore and you can do anything in any order, but like in Breath of the Wild, Hyrule Castle is always in the middle and it's like surrounded by a giant demon. So at any given moment, like you can see that that's where you're eventually supposed to go. So that's a really big element that has been that a lot of games are trying to emulate. The other one is like being able to climb and explore everywhere. That's something a lot of games are interested in doing. Breath of the Wild does a really good job of being extremely self-directed. I might offend people by saying this, but I think if you don't have fun with Breath of the Wild, it's because you're not very curious. Because like there's things on the horizon, you're like, oh, what's that? And then you go and there's a cool gameplay thing. So I think a lot of games are working on that as well. And just to shout out another game that is probably not as influential, but I think is really dope. Nier Automata has literally the most interesting story thing I've ever seen in a game, because it is actually dependent on the fact that you are playing through a series of events like over and over again and having it's actually a game about philosophy, and like you live the philosophy through playing the game. So check that out too. It's also really fun.
Awesome, thank you. Danielle, do you have one?
Do you know what? Since I started paying really close attention to characters and character creation, I think a game changer or one that could be a trendsetter is NBA 2K. I don't know if anyone's played NBA 2K, but the the detail to characters is insane. Like they literally look exactly like these basketball players. And then they even have with their app, you can make a basketball player that looks like you. So I can only imagine in the future when it comes to character creation that there's going to be that technology where you get your app, you look at your phone, and then you're playing a character that looks exactly like you. So I don't know how open they are with their knowledge, but they need to be more open. I need to see every single hairstyle, every single character, every facial hair, everything and anything that they've created on every other game. So yeah, 2K for me, although I don't actually play it as much as I would like, their attention to detail when it comes to characters would definitely be a trailblazer for me.
Thank you, Danielle. And Liz?
So I think I'm going to cheat and maybe choose two games, but for sort of the same reason. So for me, it's also an all-time favorite would be The Witcher 3, an open world RPG. I absolutely love the game. But the most defining point for me was how much value I was getting out of the side quests. I usually do struggle with some of those open world games. It's like, oh, the side quests are just very boring and monotonous and just grindy. With The Witcher 3, I would find so much story in literally every side quest I went to. It was really more the highlight of the game for me. So I'm also going to give a shout out to Hades, which is a relatively recent one from Supergiant. for sort of similar reasons. It's a roguelike game, but they're kind of using roguelike mechanics to tell an incredibly interesting story that has just got me hooked, despite the fact that I'm not very good at the game. So yeah, for me, that is very impressive. I absolutely love the trends that we're kind of moving towards to just tell an interesting story.
Thank you. I've got a really, really interesting question that I'm loving. What tools are available to teach my young Black niece of the fundamentals, she's 6 by the way, of programming, if any? One for everyone to think about there.
Should I go? So I actually teach programming to children. I teach in West Africa, commonly I go to Nigeria maybe 2 or 3 times a year, except this year, and Ghana as well. And I teach robotics to children. And we start from ages 4 up until 12, and then from 13 up to 18. So what has been really helpful in teaching programming, because that's an essential bit of robotics to children, has been scratch coding, which was developed by MIT, which is essentially like a way that you can code, but with blocks. So it's almost turning coding into a game. So if you wanted to make an if statement, so if I do this, then you want your code to do this, that's an if statement. You would drag literally an if block next to whatever you wanted it to do, and then you would get the output in the form of a game or some image, something dancing, but you'd be coding, but through dragging programmable blocks. So I think scratch coding is the one that I always recommend for any like young kids in programming.
Thank you, Anani. Hopefully that helped. Liz, I've got one for you. Kiana would like to know, what is tooling? Can you elaborate further what that means or what skills it entails?
So I actually think Alexis sort of covered this during her talk, which is interesting. But for tooling, it can definitely be a relatively vague term. But I would say in the games industry, if you are programming to physically make the games and features, and you're working for that product, you're more of the gameplay side. If you're tooling, you're helping to make things for the people making the game. You're sort of like an in-between aid, to make designing the end product easier, if that makes sense. I think I've
Thank you, Liz. Okay, so hopefully you're all getting this, and there are definitely some of the questions that have been asked have been answered during the talk. So I may not touch on some of those just because I know they have been asked. I have one for Danielle. Can you explain what a dashiki is for folks who are unfamiliar with this word?
It's funny you ask. I was literally just typing out the answer. I was just typing it out. So a dashiki is, I guess, more prominently known as a really cool t-shirt with African print on it. It got really popular amongst everyone for some strange reason about 2-3 years ago, and you'd see everyone wearing a dashiki, and it's got like a yellow line down the middle, and it comes in red and blue and orange. So it's really, really vibrant colors. But it is, I don't know exactly where it originates, but it's of course from the motherland, but I don't know exactly what nation it originates from. But yeah, so it's a really vibrant colored piece of clothing which derivates from Africa.
Thank you very much, Danielle. Alexis, one for you. Is there a distinct difference between a project manager on a dev team and a producer?
If we're talking about video games, no, there's actually not. For whatever reason, we just call it producer. There isn't a separate role that's project manager in games. So yeah, that's basically the same. We just have different names in our industry.
Thank you. Nice and quick. I have I have 2 interesting ones. I'm just debating which one to go first with. So I'll go with a slightly lighter one, which was, what would you say are your top 5 tips for keeping a good work-life balance? I sometimes become too consumed in my code.
I definitely feel like I could throw one into this because especially given lockdown and the idea that your office and your home space are very likely going to be the same thing for a while. My top tip is making sure that you have a clear separation between your work environment and your home environment. For me, that meant completely closing my work laptop. Sometimes I would maybe get a little bit of overlaps, like, no, when that time comes, completely separate it. If you're only working on one machine, try and set up 2 different desktops. And as a bonus point, if you're finding it particularly difficult to just shut off at that time, consider looking at your work and trying to break it down into smaller pieces. You may find it difficult to turn off because you're always at a constant ongoing pace. If your work is split into smaller sections, you might find it easier to say, okay, well, here is a distinct stopping point. You can sort of feel good about calling it for a day and having a bit more of a break.
Thank you, Liz. I'm going to go for a quick question that sorry, I think I might be able to answer, but I'll double check anyone else might, because I think you all have more experience than I do. So Darlise is asking for advice for someone coming into the gaming industry from a non-traditional tech background. So if anyone else thinks they can answer that, go for it. If not, I feel I can answer that one. Just because I have over a decade's worth of experience in support roles outside of the gaming industry, and I only started in the gaming industry just over 3.5 years ago. Ask questions. Never be afraid to ask questions. If you've managed to successfully gain employment in the gaming industry, just ask questions of everyone you come into contact with. You don't know something, just keep asking. That's all I can really say. I've had a lot of positive information, a lot of positive feedback, and if you are genuinely or generally quite friendly, people are really, really, really happy to help you. They are really happy to offer you advice. And what you'll then find is that quite often you can get questions answered that will help you tailor your path onwards within the industry. So I'm hoping one day to be like Alexis. Okay, so the next question I'm going to have answered is from Chantel. Would you recommend doing an internship after a 2-year degree in computer programming, or would it be better to apply for a junior position? I'm currently finishing up a degree, but not sure if I am ready to apply for a developer role. Thank you. That can go to... Oh,
you can call on someone else if you want.
Go for it, go for it.
I noticed that one in the chat. I kind of was wondering why you said that you weren't sure if you were ready for a development position. What I would say is go straight for the full-time position. If you're having a really tough go of it, then switch to internships. But basically, just kind of shoot for the moon and go for it. And if it doesn't work out, then start applying to other positions. Something my dad always told me that I really keep in mind is don't be the person that's telling yourself no. If you think that you might have enough experience to apply for a junior level role over an internship role, go for the junior level role, get those benefits.
Thank you, Alexis. Does anybody else want to have anything to add to that? Or because I think that was fine. Annabelle, I feel that your question also lines up with some of what Alexis has just said. Also, just to let you know that you can put the games that you've made in your games design and development course in your CV. So Annabelle was asking, I'll be graduating from Masters in Games Design and Development during this time. I made 7 games over 2 years. Some of the jobs I have... Sorry, I've just done something with that. Where did it go? Sorry. I've just lost Annabelle's question. Sorry about that, Annabelle, but basically she was saying, oh, there it is. Some of the jobs I have seen for entry position ask for a couple of years industry experience, which I don't have. How do you approach these positions if I don't have the industry experience? Also for CV, portfolio, what should be included? Yeah, include what you've done in your degree or in your qualification. Companies, organizations will accept that. I'm trying to think. It's all relevant. It is all relevant. So yeah, I would say include that, take on board some of what Alexis has just said, and that would be a good bet for you. They just want to see that you can do it.
A lot of times companies are, they're really like putting their very optimal hire on those. So the position I have now, I actually was not qualified for, and I knew it when I applied to it. It was like a senior producer position that was supposed to have like 5 to 8 years or something like that. And I was like, I'm just gonna apply for it. Maybe they want a standard producer, and they did, because they hired me. So if you think that you fit maybe like roughly 75% of the stuff on an interview or on a job listing, I say go for it. The worst that happens is that you wasted an hour or two of your time filling something out. Most places don't actually keep a database of failed or failed candidates, so it's not like it's gonna hurt you in the future.
Okay, thank you. Michaela, yep, your question has come through. It's for Alexis. I do not have a programming background at all. And my experience professionally is people management, learning development and culture, change, organizational development. Are these desirable experiences for a producer? If not, can you recommend what types of roles with my experience would be within gaming? Every organization has to look after its people, right?
Yeah, so I would say that it could be a project management fit, but it also could be HR. I'm not sure if you mean like, so in terms of project management, like producer role, you're mostly focused on improving the processes of the work itself, not necessarily kind of the working between people. So you'll be focused on making sure that teams that work together a lot talk to each other. But that to me is a bit different than organizational development and like people management, cultural change. That's a bit closer to an HR position. If you're working on gaming, you're probably going to need to find a bigger gaming company. Smaller ones don't have as intense HR departments, but as you start getting into gaming companies that are quite large, then they do have a lot of specialized positions that are like recruitment, HR. And so this one, I would go for those companies. And if you're still interested in project management, it's a project management role. So just look up software development project management courses. That skill set is super applicable to being a producer, because that is quite literally what our job is. Or like similarly, like animation studios and stuff have project managers. So courses that gear you towards that are also very similar.
Thank you, Alexis. I'm going to say, oh, sorry, there was a question earlier that might be a bit heavy in terms of there's going to be a lot of answering from everybody. So bear with me. It was from Anonymous. I get frustrated that the games with the biggest budgets are likely to cater to a very specific type of gamer, white and male. Do any of you feel the same way? And do you see things changing anytime soon?
I would like to start. So yeah, no, most definitely. It's common knowledge that that their audience, pretty much every game studio's audience and platform's audience, is white cis male. And so that's a lot of what my frustration was when I first started making content. Like there's really no content available for us. They're getting there. I mean, we're not going to ignore the fact that there are some games out there who are really trying to be inclusive and diverse. I want to throw out Hyperscape, for example. They've released a game, so I think that's with Ubisoft. I know they've had their issues, but Hyperscape, they've got a really cool Nigerian woman as one of their main characters, and they have a really awesome bio about her and her backstory and her family. And I'm like, yo, like this is what we need to see more of. So it's coming along, but there's so much room for improvement, like so much. So your frustrations are definitely felt, which is why there are platforms like this. You know, we're here to drive this conversation and here to make a difference, here to inspire young and promising minds to make that difference within the industry. So yes, your frustrations are definitely felt. They're getting there, but not quick enough.
Thank you, Danielle. Does anybody else want to add to that? Or
Yeah, because I work in like really big video games, what I can say is like, yeah, it totally sucks that people aren't paying enough attention to people that are not white cis men. And I think where it's coming from is this is such a white and such a male industry. Even I think the anecdote I always tell is in my first job, there was literally like the same number of women of all ethnicities as there were men named Chris. So it's just like overwhelming. And if they don't think about it, then they don't think to add content that's good. They just are not prioritizing content that is good for other minorities, for other people that don't look like themselves. And, fortunately, like the game I work on now is actually quite diverse. There's a lot of strong Black characters in it. I'm very grateful for that. But if there weren't, and if it was kind of up to me to speak up and say like, hey, I don't like this, then I'm one out of like 350 people on the development team. I really need other people that look like me, or at least just respect my experiences and want to make sure that I'm heard, to also join in on that. So the faster that all of y'all get in the industry, and also the faster that we teach the other people to include us in the industry, the more that we can get good content that represents everybody.
Thank you, Alexis. Does anybody else want to add to that before I move on to the next question? No? Okay, just a couple of quick questions, I think. Ooh, I've just lost, okay. What opinions are there in the gaming industry of boot camp graduates? Would it be better to do a degree? Anybody?
What's this in relation to? I guess programming. And when they say boot camp.
This is not specified. Oh, no, I've just put it to answer. Give me 2 seconds. Yeah, it's just yeah. What opinions are there in the game industry of boot camps graduates? Would it be better to do a degree? Alexia?
Me?
No, somebody called Alexia. Alexia asked the question.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, in terms of programming. Thank you, Alexia.
Oh, I guess I could answer that. Boot camps work also because you don't necessarily need a course anymore to teach yourself programming. I learned programming through tutorials and books, and I can see myself building full-on games now. So in terms of degree and boot camps, it's what's more comfortable with you. If you prefer short boot camps and 2 months, 3 months, you're done and you can build what you want, it's fine. But doing a degree also involves theory and it's a lot more complex than a boot camp. So whatever you're more comfortable with, but both work. It's faster using boot camps than degrees, but both work.
Okay. Thank you. Just so everybody's aware, we were meant to finish at 8, but we're running over slightly. Want to do a couple more questions, then wrap it up. So there's a couple of questions that have been related to programming languages / game engines. Liz, are you there?
Yeah, I think so. Sorry about that.
That's okay. So I wonder if this one's best for you. What programming languages would you recommend learning?
So I'd recommend learning C# because it's complementary to the engines. If you're jumping into, say, Unity, C++ is also popular for gaming. Yeah, I would definitely say that those are great starting points.
Thank you. Just to note, someone did also ask a question about what made Alexis get into game production. She did answer it in the main talk. So if you want to go to that section, just because we're running low on time, so I don't want to ask her that question again, if that's okay with everybody. So the last question I think we're going to cover for this evening. I guess this one's actually pretty good. For a self-taught beginner, can you use any type of PC or laptop? I have a Chromebook and sometimes it is hard to work with.
I can jump in if nobody else wants to.
Okay.
So yeah, as long as you have a laptop or PC or Mac or anything you can put together, if you have a Raspberry Pi, you can code on that too. I think that's one of the best things about games development. As long as you have some kind of computer, you can really make such a huge breadth and variety of games. So yeah, I mean, personally, I'm a MacBook user, but I think I might now be the only MacBook programmer in the office. I think there was one other, and they recently had to trade in. So yeah, I wouldn't get caught up too much in your tech.
Thank you for that, Liz. Again, there are a few questions that we're unable to answer this evening. Some of them have been answered in the main discussion, which everybody had their segments. So do take a look. It will be added to YouTube. I'm going to hand back to Charlene now from Coding Black Females.
Hey,
okay.
I'm back. That was absolutely fantastic. I've literally sat here in the back and I'm like, I really want to be a games developer. And also, you've all reminded me of all the games I used to play and then I just completely forgot about, like my Game Boy and Sims and a bunch of other stuff as well. So thank you so much for that. Definitely going to dig some stuff out and have another go. I'm super inspired. I know that loads of other people in the chat have been super inspired by today. You're all fantastic. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. I can't say thank you enough. It's been amazing. And Oliver, I know you've been sat in the back as well. Thank you so much for arranging it on your side from Bossa for making this happen this evening. I was going to say as well, if you could all leave some feedback about this evening. We're going to be giving out some coding courses. So if you're okay to fill out our feedback form, which is feedback.codingblackfemales.com, 5 people will be getting some games development coding courses as well. So please enter the raffle, please have a go. And this could be your start to getting into the gaming industry, a little taste of what it's like to be a games developer. So please enter the raffle by filling out the feedback form and letting us know how amazing this evening's been. Absolutely love this evening. Thank you so much. And if you want to hear more from Coding Black Females, just follow us. We're always here. All the socials, I think, have been shared in the chat as well. So you should have everyone's socials, hopefully. And if not, we will be sharing it all on social media soon anyway. So thank you very much. Thank you to some fantastic women in gaming. I've loved it. Thank you. I definitely clapped a lot in the background. It's been absolutely amazing. Have lovely evenings, have lovely nights, look after yourselves, stay safe. And it's been amazing. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Chantel, for facilitating. You were amazing. Bye. Don't forget to fill out the feedback form, feedback.codingblackfemales.com. Thank you. Bye.